The American empire is over. We're done. We peaked about 12, 15 years ago, and we are on a down. And it's very hard for the American people, which I understand. I am one. It's hard to get your head around that. We've had a century of on the way up, which is a lot more fun than on the way down. But it does happen to every empire. We're only the latest. Look at the British, how far they've fallen. We're in that process. So the problem with the trickle down is, yeah, there might be more jobs, but they're going to be created in China. They're going to be created in Brazil. They're going to be created in India. They're not created here. The best electric vehicles in the world right now, but by uniform global agreement, are produced by something called the BYD Corporation, which probably most folks have never heard of, which is Chinese. BYD, the initials, BYD. They make the best quality, cheapest electric car and truck. All right. You don't see them anywhere in the United States. Why not? Because Mr. Trump put a 27% tariff on them, and Mr. Biden raised it to 100%.
And people will be forced to buy U.S. stuff.
Right.
Which then creates U.S. jobs, which again stimulates the economy.
All right, let me be the economist. Okay? That's good for the Tesla company, which I'm sure is purely coincidental, and GM and Ford and the others. Good. And they'll maybe be able to hold on to some jobs. Good. But now let's follow the bouncing ball, because that's my job as an economist. Yeah. Everywhere else in the world, every company in Asia, Africa, Latin America that competes with an American company that has to buy a truck as part of its business will go to China and buy the best truck at the lowest price, $30,000, the best truck. No American company that competes with them will do that. And you know what that means? Those companies will be able to charge a lower price because they have better inputs than the American company, which doesn't. In the long run, that will lose Americans' jobs left and right as they're outcompeted by all the rest of the world that can go and buy, and is buying, BYD trucks. If you go to Europe right now and you go on the auto routes all over Europe, you'll see BYD cars and trucks. America is shooting itself in the foot. If you take the United States together with the other G7 countries, that used to be the dominant bloc of the world, right? The United States, let's just enumerate them so everybody knows. Canada, Japan, Germany, France, Italy, and Britain, okay? The G7, the world. And I'm going to add up all the GDP, gross domestic product, total output of goods and services of all of those 7 countries, U.S. and its major allies. And now I'm going to compare it to the gross added up GDPs of China and its allies, known now as the BRICS. Okay, you add up the United States, about 28% of world output. You add up China and the BRICS, it's 35% of the world output. We aren't the wealthiest bloc in the world. We're number 2. And that's new. And that changes everything. Stop. And you can rattle your sabers all over the place. You put the 7th Fleet in the South China Sea. Isn't going to change that. You've got to come to terms with that, but we are led by people who don't want to do that because nobody wants to be the politician who has to explain to the people it's over.
From history, what leaders and countries has emerged? There was a time that the Roman Empire were the world power. There was a time it was Germany. There was a time it was the British. And now we're in a dispensation whereby America is known as the world power. But guess what? The change is happening. It is predicted that most of those world power countries usually reign between 200 and 250 centuries. In other words, 250 years, 1 or 2.5 centuries they reign. And the truth is, no country rules forever. No power reign eternally because power rotates on. Due to industrialization, IT, technology advancement, and of course, productivity. And one of the things that make this to happen, that power rotates and changes, and is the fact that number play a very significant role. And when countries are able to manage the numbers of their country effectively, such that productivity happen and the lives of the people can speak about the betterment of the government's policy and all of other factors, it is said that such a country has become the world power, and the whole of the world can depend on them for productivity, for supplies, and vice versa. So, today I bring you what people are saying about the government and the power that America has, and how the power is eroding away, how it feels like the world power is shifting from America to probably the Asian continent. Let me show you videos I put together so that you can watch from the beginning to the end. And when we come back, we can deliberate and discuss about this at the comment section. I want your view and your perceptions to begin to pour in, because this is what we do here. Credits are given to our content in this video. Don't go nowhere. I'll be right back.
They told us China was the enemy, but they never told us that we were copying them. China wasn't the threat, it was the blueprint. They don't fear authoritarianism, they want it. China lifted 800 million people out of poverty because they measured what mattered: water, power, food, health. They actually tracked welfare of their citizens and dignity. They built trust not from ideology, from infrastructure. In the US, we track profit, the markets, even as millions go hungry and are homeless, and those numbers are climbing daily. Now, Musk comes in with the American Party that represents the 80%. Are you going to fall for it? Because, come on. This is the man who said we have too much empathy. That's the problem with the world. We don't need another millionaire, billionaire blueprint. We need to measure people, their health, their security, their safety. Because what we measure is what we serve. If we keep tracking only capital, only profits, don't be surprised when more of your freedom disappears.
China dominates the global economy because it embraces what America fears most: real labor. While the West chases branding and financial bubbles, China built an entire empire on actual production. And now their rise exposes a fatal flaw in white capitalism's disdain for work. For centuries, white economic elites have structured society around avoiding labor while extracting it from others. Enslaved Africans built the global South's wealth, while European aristocrats and plantation owners positioned themselves as gentlemen, a tradition that frames manual labor as racially inferior. After slavery, Jim Crow and other exploitative labor laws kept Black and immigrant workers in underpaid production roles, while white capitalists rebranded themselves as managers, investors, and entrepreneurs. The Industrial Revolution amplified this divide. White industrialists like Carnegie and Rockefeller glorified themselves as self-made, while their fortunes rested on child labor, immigrant sweatshops, and violent union suppression. By the late 20th century, America began offshoring its labor to China, not just for cheap wages, but because whiteness had fully divorced itself from the stigma of manual labor. U.S. executives justified this by labeling manufactured jobs as low skill, a racially coded term, while pouring money into marketing, financing, and branding, industries that produce nothing tangible but generate massive profits through psychological manipulation. Meanwhile, China weaponizes America's labor aversion. They built the world's most efficient manufacturing base, not just by making goods, but by mastering supply chains, infrastructure, and real productivity. Now China controls 80% of global solar paneling, 70% of lithium refining, 50% of shipbuilding, while the U.S. economy relies on inflating stock value, branding hollow luxuries, and predatory gig work. Now, what is the result? China's GDP has grown 40 times since 1990. U.S. wages stagnate as labor is devalued and jobs are replaced with hustle culture. America's infrastructure crumbles while China builds high-speed railways, smart cities, and AI-driven factories. White capitalism's contempt for labor has left America with a failing economy, one where finance bros are richer than engineers, influencers out-earn factory workers, and branding is valued over building. China's dominance proves that real power comes from production, not propaganda. The US can either confront its racist labor hierarchy or reinvest in real work, or watch as the next century belongs to those who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty.
No homeless people in China, because in China, even though you are very poor, like you're a very poor person, and even though that your parents maybe have an old house inside the countryside, they have an old apartment inside the city somehow, and that house, that apartment, just paying zero tax to the government. We Chinese, we do not have property tax, housing tax. We also do not have a car tax. Like every year you need to renew a tag on your license in the United States, paying $250 something. No such thing. Once we own the car, we own the house, just no tax. We only pay tax when we buy it for one time. Okay, such like my apartment, $70,000. When I buy it, I only pay one time 1% of the tax.
Wow. That is a truth. It is the truth that is said to be hard because America is not finding it easy. From history, no country that has once held on to power wants to relinquish the power easily. It has never been in record. Everyone wants to continually be in power. They want to be relevant. They want to be part of the process that is going to determine who becomes the world power next. They want to pick the next world power, but most of the time it happens by force or by other means possible that countries and leaders emerge, not because they are named, but because of their weight, the weight they carry, the production capacity, the supplies that they have to supply the whole world, whether the whole world can depend on them for productivity, for supplies, for technology, etc. And such is the story of China. China is gradually becoming or emerging as the world next power. America is not finding it difficult. America is not finding it easy. You can see that is why a lot of policies are coming. America is taxing, imposing sanctions, imposing tariff and all of that. But guess what? That is not going to change anything because the power that is going to emerge will not be deterred by that. We can't be held back by that. But rather the power that will emerge will build alliances and cooperations with other countries, continents, and that is what is happening with China. China is building alliances, it's building industrial cooperation and support and in technology advancement with countries all over the world. And what America is doing is imposing sanctions, imposing tax, increasing tariffs, which is not affecting anybody. These are pointed to the fact that America may be at the edge of losing the world power, may be at the edge of missing out on what or who is going to become the next world power. When you consider the impact of Chinese on every continent of the world, Europe, Asia itself, Africa, you can't but see the obvious handwriting written on the walls that China is becoming the next world power. And the government of America is not making this also uneasy for China. Rather, they are making it easy with all the policies and all the the tariffs that they are given to country, disassociating themselves from the powerhouse, making policies and denying UN, making all this country feel that we are not part of you guys anymore. We are breaking out. And the more America do this, the more they are losing their grip on all the continent or countries of the world. And such is the video that you just watched. I guess you listen to that man and to what he said. That's an American man who is saying that it's not rocket science. You are increasing ties on all those countries, and countries are finding a better alliance where their country, their economy can thrive. And such is what countries are doing. They are moving away from America. They are moving towards China. And it looks like America could be losing its grip on the world. America could be losing its power, its rulership, its dominance on the world. Guys, let me know what your take is, what your view and your perception is concerning this. Because it looks like power is changing hands. And America, even the people of America, they are saying the obvious. They are corroborating this reality, this fact that is happening. Guys, let me know what your take is. Thank you for staying to this moment. Thank you for liking, watching, and subscribing to this channel. I want your input at the comment section. Let the conversation begin there so that we can unravel, talk, and share other mind-blowing perceptions that is unique to each and every one of us. Thank you for watching. And if today is your first time, do what to subscribe, like, and share. And I'll be right back to bring you a mind-blowing story again. Bye-bye.